My name is Alison Coffey. I'm a senior policy analyst at the Initiative for Energy Justice. If you're not familiar with us, IEJ is a research and policy initiative based out of Northeastern University. We translate complex energy challenges into actionable insights to support communities and policymakers in creating an equitable, clean energy system. I'm very excited to be moderating today's conversation. Today, we're joined by an incredible panel of organizers and advocates who are involved in community-led disaster preparedness and recovery in their communities, including Do-hee Kim from Local Clean Energy Alliance, Becky Sell from West Street Recovery, Leola Cornett from Northeast Action Collective, and Yasir Cross from People Power Battery Collective. Our panelists will introduce themselves and their work shortly, but first, a few housekeeping items. Throughout the webinar, we invite you to use the chat, and if you have questions you'd like the panelists to respond to, you can submit those through the Q&A feature. We'll have some time at the end for your questions. Before we jump into the discussion, I'd like to briefly set the stage for our conversation today. With climate change making extreme weather more frequent and severe, communities across the country are increasingly affected by climate disasters and prolonged electric outages. I'm sure that many, if not most of the folks on this call have experienced some form of this yourselves. Having access to resilient, reliable, renewable energy is a critical part of a community's ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from these events. At the same time, over the last year and a half, we've all seen a drastic rollback of federal support for clean energy and disaster recovery, which has left many communities without critical resources to weather these storms. Over the last year at the Initiative for Energy Justice, we've been learning from and collaborating with community partners who are finding creative ways to bring resilient, renewable energy resources into local disaster preparation and recovery. We recently published a report on this topic, which offers a framework for an energy justice approach to disaster resilience and recovery. For us, this means that disaster preparedness and recovery must prioritize, involve, and benefit low-income people, communities of color, tribal communities, and other groups who have been disproportionately harmed by extractive energy systems and climate disasters. The report also includes lessons from 5 community case studies in Texas, Puerto Rico, North Carolina, and California. If you'd like to dig deeper, you can find a link to that report in the chat and on the IEJ website. So when the power goes out, we know that frontline communities are disproportionately impacted, often left in the dark longer and with fewer resources to cope with the disruption. During major disasters, backup energy traditionally has taken the form of loud, polluting gas and diesel generators, which are expensive to maintain and can harm human and environmental health. But viable alternatives to this energy status quo exist, and many communities are using renewable energy resources to meet their resilience, relief, and recovery needs. To support communities and policymakers in thinking about the universe of alternatives, our research provides a framework for thinking about resilient community energy infrastructure across 3 scales. The first is small and mobile infrastructure. This includes technologies that can meet basic needs like phone charging, refrigeration, and lighting during an outage. Examples include things like battery lending libraries where neighbors can borrow a battery pack, solar trailers that can tow portable solar panels to a community in need, or solar-powered fridges to keep food and medicine cold. Portable technologies can be easily shared and moved around as needs and conditions change. And this scale may be an accessible starting point for mutual aid collectives, neighborhood groups, and grassroots organizations. The second scale we've been thinking about is place-based infrastructure, which can help meet larger scale needs in more durable ways. One key example here is community resilience hubs outfitted with solar and storage, where community members can safely gather, take shelter, and access resources during extreme weather and also during blue skies. This is a key scale for community organizations, energy justice advocates, and local governments to build more permanent solutions in place. And third is institutional infrastructure. This scale focuses on the long-term work to transform our energy institutions so that they ensure just and equitable outcomes. This might involve scaling up energy efficiency programs, organizing ratepayers in utility accountability campaigns, or leveraging locally controlled energy agencies like community choice aggregators to help fund community resilience. We have an inventory and graphic that highlights these three scales along with the specific types of infrastructure that might fit within each in our report. Thank you for bearing with our technical difficulties of not having that up right now, but we would love for you to take a look and dig into that further. While the inventory that's listed there is by no means exhaustive, our hope is that this framework can help community members, advocates, and policymakers imagine the realm of alternatives available, assess what type of infrastructure is within reach, and think about what types of collaborations can help strengthen this work across a community's ecosystem. I am so happy that this group of panelists could join us today because their work shows examples of what's possible for communities working at each of these scales and with different levels of resources, from grassroots mutual aid battery sharing to creating neighborhood resilience hubs to leveraging local energy institutions to fund community resilience. So with that, I'd like to turn to our panelists. A quick reminder that you can submit questions for our panelists at any point during the Q&A feature, so please don't hesitate to do that as those questions come up. And I'm now going to bring our panelists onto the screen. Thank you all so much for joining us. It is fantastic to have you here and so excited to learn from your experience and expertise doing this work. To kick things off, could you each briefly introduce yourself and your organization and share a little bit about what types of climate disasters or energy emergencies your community is facing? Maybe we can start with Yasir and go from there.
Peace, everyone. Name's Yasir, and I'm here today representing the Battery Collective. We're in the Bay Area of California. We do work kind of all over, so not just California, but a lot of different states we've done work in, and kind of off-continent things as well. So what was the other question? Introduce ourselves and
what type of climate disasters or energy emergencies your community has been facing that has informed your work?
Okay. So one of our biggest things, we kind of emerged out of a lot of the California wildfires, just as a response to the California wildfires and the displacement that happens during a wildfire. So a lot of people lose their property, unfortunately. They're also displaced from their houses at different times. So kind of as a response to that, Battery Collective was formed, just to fill in the gap for where people don't have energy. They don't have power or access to plug in their refrigerator or their laptops or their cell phones or any of their medical devices and equipment. So then, as a response to the wildfires, PG&E is the utility that's in our area. They started doing rolling blackouts and shutting people's power off. So that's more of a regular thing now. So as a response for an old network that they have, instead of causing more wildfires, what they'll do is they'll shut off the energy. When they shut off the energy, a lot of people are affected when they shut off the energy. So the Battery Collective, again, is a response to filling in the gap of how people can keep their energy on while the network goes down. So we do a lot of different things, and I think we'll talk later about those, I'm assuming. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of the Battery Collective, what we started off, and it's usually wildfires, high wind advisories and high wind situations. They'll shut off here in the Oakland Hills. They'll shut off the power on days where the temperature, it seems like now, exceeds 98 degrees. PG&E is shutting off power for people as well, and that's mostly due to old infrastructure that they haven't upgraded in years. So San Francisco they get caught up in rolling blackouts, and also East Bay as well. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasir. Next, how about Becky and Leola, and then Dohi?
Hey everyone, I'm Becky from Houston, Texas, and I'm a co-director of West Street Recovery, and I work with Lee here, who's part of the NAC, which I'll let her tell you all about. But so West Street started after Hurricane Harvey 9 years ago, just basically doing a group of people who came together during the storm to focus on areas of the city that have been like historically left out of government services and were left out of government services like during and right after the storm. And since then, it's grown into wider preparedness and recovery and organizing programs. So we're born out of a hurricane, but we have had a lot of different kinds of disasters hit us since then. So we're on the Gulf, so of course we get hurricanes. We get really heavy rains, so we get flooding, and then sometimes we get high wind events. And we also just get power outages, kind of for overlapping reasons with what Yasir just shared. So we've had a lot of extreme heat and extreme cold combined with grid outages. Yeah, and then of course the pandemic and kind of non-weather like society disasters like SNAP benefits being cut or just like infrastructure and wellness services being cut. And I'll pass it over to you, Leola.
Hey, my name is Leola, and I'm with the Northeast Collective in Houston, Texas, as Becky was saying. And I'm one of those people that was in the disaster. Like when I hit, I went without power for 16 days. And that was during the summertime. It was very hot. I was going to work in the heat. I was coming home in the heat. And there was no one to help us. I'm also in the area where it floods. So if it rains 2 hours or an hour and a half heavy, it will flood. And the city of Houston was not doing anything about it. That's how West Street was formed, because in this area, it seemed like Houston had forgot about us. So we had to do something for ourselves. So that's when it started to help people help themselves. So what we did is knocked on the doors, not saying what you need, what we know we need stuff. We were saying, how can we help? Because we know you need help. Don't be too proud to say you need help. And that's what we're help for. So we were just like boots on the ground from the beginning, whatever you need. Hopefully we can provide it. And we can't, we will find somebody that surely can. Thank you.
Thanks, Leola. My name is Dohi, and I'm the Energy Democracy Campaign Organizer with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. It's great to be with Yasir, who's also based in the Bay, but LCEA is based on Oakland, California, on the unceded Ohlone lands, and just really honored to be with movement partners here. I think even the attendees, there's people from Oaxaca, Mexico, from Ohio. I think it's amazing that also Alison and IEJ's report highlights all these amazing work on the ground. And I think Leola mentioned boots on the ground for community resilience and disaster preparedness. But happy to dive in to share more about Local Clean Energy Alliance. Our organization has been part of this movement towards energy democracy, not only advancing alternatives to investor-owned utilities profiting out of climate misery, but also solutions that work in alternatives to corporate utility models. And in 2016, local Clean Energy Alliance could not have done it alone. We won some groundbreaking commitments for a community choice aggregator that Alison teased a little bit in the introduction. It was formerly known as East Bay Community Energy, and that was built from momentum of 60 organizations and stakeholders. We also had unity and solidarity with Alameda Labor Council in 2016. And so it took all of us, like we need you to develop these energy democracy solutions. And California is leading in this model as well. And even though it is called a community choice aggregator, which we have 25 operating in the state, Local Clean Energy Alliance likes to call it community choice energy, really rooted in this language and modeling of energy democracy. And I think Yasir described a great kind of landscape of what we're dealing with, especially with enviro justice frontline communities that have been historically disinvested. For example, I've been a renter and tenant in the Bay Area for the past 10 years. I used to live in Berkeley, now live in West Oakland, which is a formerly or continuously red line and gentrified area. And much of California's housing, especially in disadvantaged communities, is old, is in disrepair, and lacking cooling, modern wiring, and safety features. That affects our spaces and makes them more vulnerable to heat and wildfire. I'm not sure if people in California remember the apocalyptic orange skies during September 2020 when wildfires across North California was making the daytime look like night and also exacerbating air quality during the COVID-19 pandemic. We also have risks of sea level rise and flooding, and drier seasons in California also cause higher flood risks. And I'm not sure if people in California remember, Governor Newsom recently, I think in the last year, released warnings around flood risks, and that's becoming more exacerbated. And so Local Clean Energy Alliance, we serve our frontline communities in San Joaquin and the East Bay and Alameda County, and we know that extreme heat, urban trapping of heat, sea level rise, air quality, all of this affect us. And this is why we need energy democracy. It's modeling what is possible and what is necessary and what will help us not only survive and thrive, and just, yeah, really excited to be here with all the panelists and everyone here from all across the country today.
Amazing. Thanks, y'all. So you're all involved in projects that are focused on providing resilient, renewable backup energy to your communities. And we'd love to hear what these projects are. So could you share a little bit about how you're using resilient, renewable energy to support disaster preparedness and recovery? And also how you think about building equity and justice into your work?
Okay, I will start. I think what we do is our main goal is to help our neighbors. So what we do is go around, like I say, boots on the ground, knocking on doors. Let's say, for instance, in the wintertime, what we do before it get cold, because we know it's gonna get cold, it ain't gonna snow, but it's gonna get icy. We go around wrapping people's pipes. So therefore, so they would have water and the pipe won't bust. I also had that to happen to me. So, I know that would happen. And right now, even though we're in hurricane season, the climate is so bad. We are having heat waves. I mean, we're in the 3 digits, and a lot of people's air conditioners out. So we, beside fans, we have generators, we have batteries. So if the lights do go out or the power do go out, we have the batteries, so we can do the generators for you. And we try to help people as much as we can with that. So we want nobody to be without. So say, for instance, if someone called and say, hey, you know what, I need an air condition, my lights is out, we supply batteries for them, a generator for them, and let them know that, hey, you know what, we're here to help you, because there's so much going on in Texas that it's always something going on that we can help. So we're not just say a 3-month organization. We're around the clock, 24/7, 12 months out of a year. We there for you. So we're not gonna say, hey, you know what? It's in December, call me back in June. We're not gonna do that. We help whenever and however we can. Um, and as far as the climate justice, and we try to be fair to everyone. So it doesn't matter, even though we said Northeast, but if you're out of Northeast, we still help you. We're not gonna just limit ourselves to just one area. All over Houston, if you need help, call us and we'll do our very, very best to do whatever we can, whether it's food, it's lights, it's power, water, whatever. If you need a place to stay, we do that. We do whatever we can to help because that's what we're here for. And I don't know anybody in this organization that's in the organization that do not like helping people. And I know there's nobody in the organization going to turn anybody away. Thank you.
I'll add on to what Lee said. So one project that West Street and the NAC do together is our hub houses, which a lot of that work Lee just shared happens through. Well, the Northeast Action Collective, we call the NAC, excuse me, is basically a very large group of people, primarily in Northeast Houston, but kind of all over the city, who meet every week, and we organize together around changes in the city and county and learn together. And then we do a lot of disaster preparedness together and kind of also like group comprehension and analysis of like what's going on right now. Finding patterns in like risks going on right now or hard things happening, and then connecting that into bigger systems and like history of the area that are causing this stuff. So one project we have together are our hub houses, which started after a really bad freeze we had in 2021 that caused the Texas grid to almost crash, and we didn't have power for about a week in below freezing temperatures, which in Texas is a crisis because that's weird weather for Texas. So no one has winter clothes or knows how to take care of themselves in the winter, and homes are not like insulated for the cold. So like literally people are getting like icicles from their bathtubs and things like that. But we have a bunch of people in our group that have disabilities where they rely on electronic medical equipment. And so we found ourselves in this total crisis of trying to like navigate icy roads to make sure people, could breathe. So after that storm, we were like, we need to do something about backup power. So the hub houses started with just a couple generators, and then NAC basically chose 2 members to put the generators at their houses for people to be able to come use in the case of a disaster, like a place we could rely on backup power. And then over the like 5 years since then, they've grown into much bigger centers. So they're based out of members' homes, and then they have backup power, backup water, like medical equipment, rescue supplies, all kinds of like technical gear, and then like basically a team that knows how to use everything. And so on the energy side, we have home, solar, and batteries at each of those, and then also propane, gasoline generators. And then we also have a library of smaller 1 kilowatt hour batteries that can be loaned out and used outside of the hub. Yeah, I think that covers it. So yeah, go ahead.
Let me also say I am a hub captain assistant, and I also have a mini hub. And even though the bigger hub have a lot of things in it, also I have in the mini hub not as much, but you can always come to the mini hubs and get whatever you need because I have that also. Not as much as you have, but I can always go to any of the other hub houses and get something if you need it. So we kind of like we work together. So
Yeah,
if one don't have it, the other one do.
We have 8 full hub houses, And then we have about 9, 10 mini hubs. And then this year we also started training other people and orgs in Houston to start their own hub houses. So we have 3 other like hub houses we're helping start this year that will be run by other people.
And
Over.
we not only we also go to City Hall. And don't get me started on that. But we go to City Hall because we fight. We don't just do, we fight for what we need. Because if we don't go to City Hall, uh the mayor just gonna do what they want to do. So we have to have we have let him know what we need, how we need it, and let him know that we're going to get it one way or the other. Because you're gonna see these yellow shirts every time you open your eyes. When you close your eyes, you're gonna see the yellow shirt. So you're gonna get tired of seeing us. You're gonna say, "Hey, give them what they want," because they're not gonna stop. And we do not intend to stop fighting. Over. Thank you. And I'd like to ask one other question to the gentleman in California. When you say a blackout, how long does that blackout last?
Oh, yeah, it can last it varies. So sometimes, I think the last time San Francisco was out, they were out for multiple days. I think it was like 3 days that they were out. They
So,
have planned rolling blackouts that sometimes only last like 24 hours, but um, when they get into more like a disaster thing where it goes out where it's unplanned, they don't understand why. They have to go through the troubleshooting process and so forth. So that last one in San Francisco was maybe back in, can't remember what month that was, maybe 3 months ago. But yeah, it was out for multiple days.
so do the peoples in your area, they prepare for that? They know it's gonna happen, but do they be prepared because that's a big area? So do your city government help you with that, with the blackouts, when it happens? So the people's, the children, the elderly, so they be provided for, so they wouldn't go without, so they wouldn't get it, so they would have what they need.
No, the only accommodation I think the local governments make are they restrict blackouts in areas that have hospitals. But that's pretty much the only thing that they're mindful of. Outside of that, you are a consumer, and it's your responsibility to be a responsible consumer. So, get your own solar panels, get your own battery backup, get your own means to survive in the event that that power goes out. So,
And you see, that was one of the motivations for thinking about creating the Battery Collective, right? Would you be able to share a little bit about kind of what y'all do on the ground?
absolutely. Sorry, my connection dropped there. Yeah, so we take a or have taken or are taking a more educational approach. So our thing is to get people to understand and try to help people to start thinking outside of the box. So we have, we're used to walking in a room, flipping on a light switch, doing our business and keeping it moving. So when we flip on that light switch and it doesn't work, that's where we want people to, we'll have games, we'll have interactions with people like, hey, what would you do? You know, it's out for a day. What are your needs? What are your necessities if your power's out for a day? Okay, think larger than that. Say it's out for a week. Say it's a natural disaster. Say it's actually, fire burnt down the distribution center or fire affected your entire community. So things like this, we want people to start thinking about. And then overarching, like really thinking about the structure and how the infrastructure is set up. Um, we go pretty deep, like into how the energy system started here in the United States. Um, the background of that, the backs of the people that it was started on, the land of the people that it was started on, just really to get people to think about the architecture. And we think the more that people can understand the architecture, the more that they can, one, start to have creative ways to dismantle it, and also have more creative ways to rebuild it. To say, why do we have, why are we getting our energy from 100 miles away? When physics says, you push energy out, it's going to attenuate. Like the signal is going to start off here, and by the time it gets to you, it's here. So you have to keep boosting up the signal. Every time the signal is boosted up, we're paying. The ratepayers are paying money for that. Not because it's something intelligent we designed, saying, hey, why don't we put our energy hub um, a block away so we can get energy efficiently here? Or why don't we put it on our roof or in our backyard or in our neighbor's backyard so we can all benefit from it? Um, those are things that intelligent communities think about and intelligent communities engage in. But when you have a model where it's just a financial model, they're not thinking about those things. They're thinking about what's the cheapest way to get an electron from point A to point B. And oh, it's not cheap. Great, let's just charge people more money for it. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are wrong with the system that we want to make sure people understand, because really those changes are going to come from people. Your power goes out, to your point, the local government's not going to come and save you or come help you. That's really going to be up to the people to organize and figure out how to get the community involved. And that's where the Battery Collective really tries to create those links and to help people start thinking about what happens before it happens.
Okay, now in
Um,
Texas, for the last couple of years, we've been doing solar panels. And a
mhm.
lot of people's getting solar panel just for that reason, just in case the lights goes out, the government's not going to help you. So how solar panel in your area, how is the people's taken to that? Is they receptive to it? Is it something they don't want? Is this something they just can't afford? So how is that doing? How is it doing that with the solar panel? Because here it's beginning to really, really kick off.
Yeah, so solar panels, what California, I think, has discovered and not really presented to people is that solar panels, they do require using an upfront capital. Not everyone can afford solar panels. What California is like the number one state that has solar panels, and it's probably the highest state for electricity charges. So it's not, let's get everyone on solar so we can drive the electricity prices lower, because the model for PG&E and Edison, like their model is based off of guaranteed income. So they go to the lawmakers and say, hey, we need to make this much money. The lawmakers say, okay, great, we'll pass these laws so you guys can make that much money. They don't go and say, hey, actually 50% of California is on solar. So we're actually, we don't have such a high, they're still producing the same amount of power and saying that they need to produce more power so they can get more money, the PUC to approve rate increases and so forth. So um, solar panels is an option, don't get me wrong. But really, I think people need to start thinking a little bit differently. So you have a grid tied solar system where you're tying to the grid. The power goes out, your power is going to go out at your house. You have an off-grid system where you actually defect or disconnect from the grid. The power goes off, you still have power. And not only that, you can set up systems so your neighbors have power also off of that same system. So I would say like a community that's starting or a community that's imagining like what's the best way to be so they're resilient, that they're really thinking about taking their systems off of the grid. So that way, if the grid goes down again, you don't lose power. Your community can still have power. And if you have a little bit of like imagination, you can set it up. So like I said, your neighbor, your neighbor's neighbor can all have power off of your same system as well.
And this might be a great segue to Dohi and your work with Local Clean Energy Alliance and thinking about increasing access and resources for solar and storage on community resilience hubs.
Yeah, Allison, thanks so much. I was actually just very activated hearing from Leola, Becky, and Yasir, especially kind of going from this mutual aid model of frontline communities with the hub houses, and then Yasir talking about actually like, local energy and community ownership of local energy is essential to our livelihoods. And I think in the chat someone put balcony solar. Senate Bill 868 in California, we are pushing for balcony solar, and Local Clean Energy Alliance is in full support of that as well. But this made me think of your initial question, Allison, on how do we actually tangibly center equity and justice in this transition to cleaner energy? And that doesn't necessarily have to be solar too, but when I was with the Green Lining Institute, for example, which was an organization that focused on reparations and policy and programs that have embedding equity at every step, I learned that, all of the things that we were trying to do, it's not just in theory and practice. We have to deliver real equity outcomes in our healthy living, economic security, and providing opportunity and wealth generating opportunities. And what's been really exciting with Local Clean Energy Alliance and supporting the Community Resilience Hub campaign is we mentioned that community choice aggregator or community choice energy programs is an alternative to an investor-owned utility like Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, that is beholden to market stakeholders. They have a bottom line that they want to fill. They have profit quotas that they want to fill rather than thinking about the people who are affected by public safety power shutoffs, for example. When we talked to a municipal partner in San Joaquin County, they mentioned, PSPS is so frequent here because of extreme heat that will increase by 4 to 5 degrees within 5 to 10 years, and that would have devastating consequences. And that's right next. This timeline is right next to us. It's actually already here right now. And so with the CCA model or the Community Choice Energy Program, what's really exciting about this is kind of what Leola said too. Like we need to hold our local governments accountable. We need to hold our public agencies accountable, and we need to make sure that our public money is invested in our people, not for profit. And so with the Community Resilience Hub initiative, Ava Community Energy is funding millions of dollars where we are partnering with Emerald Cities Collaborative, Northern California, and Local Clean Energy Alliance and community outreach. And we are really focusing on frontline, local, trusted neighborhood spaces that are alternatives to residential spaces, alternative to maybe fire stations or police stations, especially in this political climate where that feels quite unsafe for a lot of our BIPOC communities or low-income communities. What's a viable and existing alternative? And what we realized since the years leading up to this is that community resilience has always existed. It's just a term that may be emerging or may feel a little bit technical, but as kind of, what West Recovery and Northeast Collective Action is describing is that it arose out of a clear need. And so what's really exciting about this Community Resilience Hub initiative is that we are able to help local resilience hubs transition into not only having solar panels on their roofs, but having battery storage that could help them with a wide range of critical resilience services. So we recently had a Hayward workshop in California, and I had this wonderful conversation with a community member named Tammy. And Tammy said, I came to this workshop because I work with community partners at the Frontline where we're encountering food apartheid. And she was very deliberate about that choice of words. She said, this kind of system and structure that doesn't allow for community members to access grocery stores is part of this effort for community resilience, where I could visit this church called Glad Tidings, and I could also help teach people how to preserve their food for months in case the power goes down and refrigeration is not accessible. And people on average, according to kind of her real lived experiences with community partners on the ground, is that people walk an average of 12 miles every day. And that is just blatantly unjust. And so it's important for us to have like different programs and different incentives and different funding that actually has tangible equity impacts that helps people like Tammy and people like and all these resilience hubs that people actually have always relied on. And I think the last point I just want to share is that I feel like embedding equity and justice in our policies and programs are context specific. So, a resilience hub in Hayward might be different from a resilience hub in downtown Chinatown. It's great to have elements of cultural preservation and being attuned to the different needs on ground. It's also relational, and I think Yasir brought this up really well too. to even install a solar panel, you need to have a sturdy roof and you need to have good infrastructure beforehand. And often that is a barrier. So there are resilience hubs we've reached out to who are very interested in having cleaner energy, having better air quality for their community members that they serve. But they said, you know, we just don't have the money right now, especially when a lot of nonprofits are under attack for their value leading work, given the political climate right now. And also equity is also transformative. I think Local Clean Energy Alliance really focuses on energy literacy and deconstructing kind of technical concepts as well. Community members are already their own energy experts. We are already empowered to do the change that we already know we need. And I kind of want to subvert what is often shoved down our throats. Like, communities are reclaiming and reinstating the clean energy that they always deserved. And it was never meant to be used to extract or oppress or exploit or dehumanize us. We are the solutions that we are looking for. So I think the work of having that transition to local ownership and governance of clean energy, whether it's solar or other clean energy alternatives, is just life-saving.
It's been so interesting to hear the work that you're doing in distinct places, because you're obviously working in different communities in different geographies that have their own local characteristics and needs. And at the same time, just hearing common elements coming up between these different projects, thinking about sharing batteries with neighbors, which Yasir is doing in the Bay Area, Leola and Becky are doing in Houston, thinking about then what are the different forms that resilience hubs can take in Houston. They're rooting them out of neighbors' homes. In the Bay Area, Dohi and colleagues are working on ways to ensure that established community organizations have that solar and storage to benefit folks in their communities. And so it's very cool to hear both the distinctions and the points of convergence between the work that you're doing. One other common thread that really comes through in all of your work is thinking about the ways in which solar panels or battery storage are, at the end of the day, really just pieces of technology. And building community energy resilience actually requires much more than that physical technology. Also, you know, strong social relationships around it. So I'd love to hear a little bit from your perspectives. What are the social relationships or the social infrastructure that your work either cultivates or relies upon so that these pieces of energy technology can actually serve community members?
I can kick us off. So, okay, so okay, a thing that came up to me a lot when Yasir and Dohi were talking is energy comprehension. And there's this term energy blindness, which I've heard, which means basically like energy is this like magical thing to us that we don't connect to any material. And we don't really know how much energy different stuff, like different energy, different stuff takes. And so I think a really important part is just like understanding energy and what takes different amounts of power, and then what that power comes from. And so having like for us, we have a big team. We have a team, what, Lee, maybe of about 25 of us that 25 to 30 of us that work on the hub houses very consistently, like help run the hub houses. We meet every month, and then each hub is like doing its own work on maintaining their hub, connecting with their network, and moving batteries around, and teaching how to use the batteries. And then we have a bigger network of about 150 people that we meet with every week around like anything from political organizing to these disaster hubs, and do trainings with. So basically we have this we have this very like consistent network and meeting structure that's happening all the time. And through that, we're also, as Lee was saying, like constantly understanding what's going on, who needs what, coming up with ideas of how to like support each other, take care of ourselves. And so that social network kind of allows and using solar and batteries not just in these like extreme emergencies but all the time allows us to understand both like the needs and how the technology also works, and then also just in general how we use energy and how we can be more energy aware and like use less energy overall. And yeah, I think the thing that always comes up to me is like we call solar and batteries renewables, but they're a huge part of them is not renewable. And if you like actually see and hold the technology, you can you can realize that. And then we do like a lot of group learning around like the global supply chains of where that technology comes from as well, because it's really important. Like there's a huge piece that's like we want to own power and be able to use it and fix it on our own in our network in Houston. But it's also important to know uh all the war and conflict and stealing that is behind those resources as well. Okay, so that was a long-winded way to say that this network and kind of using the batteries and solar in this ongoing way allows us to like learn to use it on a bigger scale, so that we're like capable, like a big network of us is capable of teaching other people if like a new person comes in that needs a battery, how to use it, what they can use it on, developing like little like graphics that help explain that and stuff. But then at the same time, just kind of changing our orientation towards energy and comprehension of like this kind of like renewable and like endless idea we have of like how modern society interacts, to change it to yeah, just comprehend that and respect that more in how we're kind of orienting everything we're doing and dreaming of the future. Over.
And if I can pick it back up from what Becky said, we also have the main key is education. So we always getting batteries in. So we have a smaller battery if you want to say plug your phone up, so to charge your phone. We got another battery that'll plug up your TV, say a fan, and we have also a bigger battery. So we set it going up so that way you're not limited to just one thing. And West Street and NEC is educating us. So if we need this battery, we don't have to go and ask the manufacturer how to work it because we already know. So education is what it is, and it's not only for, like I say, we have our race is different. I think Miss Ma is from Vietnam, and we have everybody. Nobody's excluded. So, excuse me, if you want to learn how to work this battery, no matter how big it is, we got somebody to do it because we educate, educate, educate. Over.
I just want to hop in really quickly after what Becky and Leola shared, because I think it was really important to note about kind of the supply chain or the labor chain of clean energy, of really getting that holistic picture. And Allison, I think your report does that really well too, with the tiers of infrastructure and talking about disaster capitalism or disaster colonialism, like all these movements around clean energy. It's not separate from all these other planetary polycrises that we're experiencing together. And I just wanted to share that Local Clean Energy Alliance actually recently fought in a campaign against a Deloitte contract that our agency, Ava Community Energy, was planning to have as a partnership for their customer program strategic roadmap. And that's just fancy words to describe their 5-year vision of community clean energy investments. And the reason why the fight was really emergent and activated with our community partners, especially with our People's Clean Power Alliance that our organization helps steers with Alameda and San Joaquin County of Enviro Justice advocates and partners, of frontline community members, is that Deloitte is a international multi-billion-dollar firm that maintains business with immigration and customs enforcement, so ICE and Department of Homeland Securities. And they actually have a $24 million contract that was passed in 2023 to provide data that supports ICE rates. And actually, some of the company members mobilized to stop the company as well. And so Local Clean Energy Alliance saw this as not only a clean energy issue, but a racial justice issue, an immigration justice issue. And we successfully stopped the contract with Deloitte and encouraged, actually, have you thought about your enviro justice workforce resolution that you passed as an agency that requires local contracting, and kind of having that mindfulness about like the supply and labor chain and making sure that we are not harming our communities, even if we were not aware of it, the impact could still be there. And so Ava actually passed a policy to not contract with Deloitte and investigate kind of the labor and supply chain and ensure that we are value aligned. So I just thought what Becky shared was very relevant to kind of the work that we also do here.
And I'll diddle that as well. So yeah, anyone who doesn't understand that, well, I shouldn't say that. I should say that it's important for everyone to understand that clean energy, what we call clean energy or renewable energy, is not renewable. It's not clean. It comes from a very dirty place. Every Tesla driving on the road, do your research, check Congo, check Africa, check where these lithium batteries are coming from, check where everything that creates the batteries are coming from. Those resources have been stolen, have been exploited, and they will continue to be. So it's not clean. So everyone needs to have a basic understanding of that, which is why we try to educate people. If you don't need to charge that phone, don't charge it. If you don't need to flip on that light switch, don't flip it on. That's like always the very first thing. So we try to, community is the most important thing. And we try to make sure the community understands who they are, what their boundaries are, and then how that intersects with the next community, whether it be where it comes from or whether it be where the energy is going.
We've reached the end of our hour. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to Dohi, Becky, Leola, and Yasir for all of the incredible insights, perspectives, expertise that you brought both to this conversation and to the important work that you're doing in your communities. And, you know, as we think about the energy justice and energy democracy movements more broadly. If anyone is interested in diving deeper into the work that these organizations are doing, we have brief case studies in the report that we just published, where you can also find details around the way that these folks are thinking about governance of their projects, financing, practical challenges, the contradictions that come with the supply chain question. So invite everyone to take a look there, but even more so, please connect with each other, with our panelists. We've been so happy to have you on to be able to hear your voices and your expertise directly from you, and just very honored to be in relationship and communication and conversation with all of you about this. So thank you again so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this conversation today. And I know that we would all love to connect, stay in touch. So please feel free to reach out to any of us if you're interested in learning more, in collaborating. We value all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Peace.